Hello, agents. We're talking about the question on everybody's mind these days. When will housing prices come down? Now, you might be in our area, you might be somewhere across the country, and there are different answers to this question. I have read about, mostly on Facebook, places where housing prices seem to be down, where buyers have more strength. And there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. I would love to hear from someone who's in that kind of a market. We see what seems to be a typical seasonal slowdown. But last year we had a doozy of a seasonal slowdown for fall. And then it went bananas in the spring with the 4 houses that came on the market. But seems to have eased again, even though, there's not really, other than interest rates, there's not really a reason for it. There certainly wasn't anything we could point to easily last year. So it just seems like these valleys are getting a little bit deeper.
Yes, well, as I mentioned on our live, that it's kind of jarring because of my town, my county, my neighborhood, whatever you want to say, that there's such a small amount of activity going on, basically, that things are going like this, even though, or numbers are going like that, even though that's not necessarily accurate, because it only takes 1 or 2 smaller houses to go on the market to make it seem like it fell quite a bit, like averages
or houses in worse condition too.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And it really only takes 1 or 2 of the larger, more expensive, properties in the county to go on the market, to sell, and suddenly everything looks like it shifted, 10%, 5%, whatever, over month to month. But what we have seen in our KCM, we love KCM and getting those graphics when we're talking about broad ideas, is that we shared one of our graphics. Should I share it now?
Yeah, let's point this out to everybody, because again, I think a lot of agents fall into the trap of trying to make predictions and saying, housing prices are not going down, or housing prices are going to go down. Whatever it is, you're saying this is the evidence that shows how stupid that is.
Well, and I mean, and we've talked about this several times, is how many lenders do we talk to and say, oh, in May, interest rates are going down to 5. Okay, this summer, interest rates are going down to 5. Okay, fall. And it's just not happening. And I think part of the reason it's not happening is because we are seeing these adjustments on the forecasts for home prices, that they're artificially trying to, make these prices bottom out, and it's kind of annoying in my opinion. But as you can see in this graphic that we have,
a lot of them just want to be right?
Well, they want to be the first ones to predict. Everybody wants to be the first ones to predict, and since we've been on such an incline for so long, they feel
that they're going to be right.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So we have all of these major entities, Fannie Mae and Morgan Stanley and the Z Word and Wells Fargo and all these others, anywhere between 0.5% and 20% decrease in home prices. And as I've mentioned many, many times, when it comes to having economic downturns, that for the last many years, 40 or 50 years, there are very few situations there's almost no situations outside of the Great Recession where we saw really anything over 5% dip. I think it's more of like 3% one time, and everything else has been on the plus side of housing prices.
It's so often too, I think it's not really a decrease. It's just that people anticipated an increase. So what happens oftentimes when people are pricing houses, and I'm sure all of you know this, you're leapfrogging, right? So that house sold for 300. So the next house gets priced at 300 and it sells for over list at 310. So the next house gets priced at 310. And then that one sells for 325. So then you're at 325. Well, then then that crazy demand lessens a little bit. So it's not 325, not because it's a real decrease, just because you don't have that let's push it higher and higher going on. And so we can call it a decrease. It's technically a decrease, but in reality, it's just a little bit of a pullback. And that is so far from a crash.
Absolutely. And so now it seems like everybody's changing their tune. I mean, not a single one of these entities are predicting a negative, for the rest of the year. And so this is a Keeping Current Matters. And this week, our newsletter that we send out also had information, graphics and blog post about the predictions for the next 5 years. And guess what? 2, 3, 4% increase year over year is predicted. Again, who knows if that's going to be true, but things aren't slowing down. The demand seems to be continuously going up. There could always be something that happens, but it does seem like we're looking at
always questions about, I remember coming out of the crash, there was something that was being referred to as shadow inventory, which meant everybody who's going to list their house but hasn't yet, but they're in some sort of a situation that's going to compel them to list their house. So one of those things I'm hearing about now is Airbnb. There's new legislation, particularly in New York, restricting the use of Airbnbs. Lots of other municipalities are enacting laws to make it harder. And when you make it harder, typically you make it less lucrative, and then it's going to be something that people get out of. Also, there's a whole lot of people who jumped into it thinking it was passive income, and that they weren't going to have to do any work. They were just going to magically, get $1,000 a night,
right? Just like being a landlord, just passive. You just cash those checks and sit on a beach somewhere drinking your pina colada.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I thought about it for a while, because I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a vacation property that you could use, and you could also like occasionally rent out and maybe cover some of the money. And then I joined a few Facebook host groups, and oh my goodness, no. It's a lot of work. I mean, I knew it was work. I'm a regular landlord. But the things that happen and go through, and the scammers and the fraud and the extortion is just outrageous. Plus, you either need to do everything yourself, or you need to rely on third parties. And relying on third parties to clean seems to be the biggest issue and headache. So there are all of these Airbnb owners who didn't buy the property for personal use. They only bought it with the hope of making big profit. And now they may not be in that position, and so they might be willing to sell. Well, when I look at the numbers, I'm not seeing enough to solve an inventory problem. It might bring a few more properties on the market.
Definitely not in our area. Now, that might be something different on the coastal towns, Carolinas and Florida and stuff.
Certain places where actually they've, almost taken over all the housing in the area. Yeah.
That's where we were seeing the $100,000 over asking, and the guaranteed $70,000. Not earnest money. What do they call it?
Yeah, it's something like earnest money.
Yeah, right. Where it was guaranteed and things like that. Pardon me? Due diligence?
Isn't that what they call it?
Yes, due diligence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, crazy amount of money. We weren't ever really seeing that here. Maybe in the city, maybe there were condos and stuff like that have, were selling and maybe closer to the city. But I mean, not too many around these parts.
And Chicago's always had some pretty strict rules, or maybe not always, but for a long time, they've had really strict rules around Airbnbs, and most HOAs here don't allow them. So I think most of the place where you see where they might really have an impact are second home communities, like you said, those coastal areas, Colorado, places where people really vacation as a rule.
Right.
And so there, that might affect those local markets. So if you as an agent are in one of those markets, that might be something to look at. I think here we might see some of it. We might see a little more inventory come on. Hey, if you have an Airbnb that you want to sell, we are here for you. Happy to get you out of that. But I don't see it as having the kind of impact that needs to be had here. So Danielle and our prediction is that demand is still going to be very strong for a long time. We don't have enough houses. People are staying in their houses far longer than they used to. It didn't used to be. It's been a trend for some time that empty nesters are staying in their 5-bedroom house. Get out of there, move.
Absolutely. Well, that's,
but keep up their interest rate.
But even, today I was just talking to an alderman in my town about, the need for kind of more retirement size homes. And I am seeing that is a trend that, starter homes and stuff like that are because we've always heard, right? We always know of highest and best use. And
right.
So when a developer buys, 40 acres, 150 acres, whatever it is, and putting a bunch of houses on there, they definitely want to make it the biggest and best that will sell for that area. And, by putting a 1,200 square foot ranch isn't necessarily highest and best use in a lot of, areas, especially as sprawl is happening, like in my area where it's, Kendall County was for the last 20 years, one of the fastest growing counties in Illinois. But the demand is going to be, even if they try to sell it for $150,000, to downsize and be reasonable, it's quickly going to skyrocket in my opinion. So I don't know how helpful that's going to be, but at least, hopefully the people who can't do the stairs anymore, hopefully the people who, have disabilities or just old age or whatever, risk falls, will have options. But I don't see anybody really building fast enough. They just can't build fast enough around here.
Yeah. Yep. And so if things are different in your market, let us know. We are always fascinated by what's going on where, and don't fall into that. Don't fall into the trap of guessing what's going to happen, especially with your specific clients. I mean, if you tell somebody, wait, the market's going to crash, and you lose them $100,000 because prices just keep going up, that's your fault. Don't do that. So we want to counsel people. We want to give them the information. We want them to draw their own conclusions. But we want to get people into the houses where they're going to thrive. And that's our main purpose.
Yeah.
So see you next week.
Bye.